do I call this guy a masculine? His vibrancy, the depth of his intellectual prowess is incredibly amazing. And I'm sure when he comes here, you will feel the fire. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the podium TJ Ehirim Wanagamba. Incoming governor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
I want to greet all of you by singing a line. Ndigo mama, ndigo mama, unile odoma chineke nesia, umigo mama, unile, ndigo mama, umigo mama, odoma chineke nesia, umigo mama, ndigo mama, oina tuno, ndigo mama, odoma chineke ndoma, umigo mama. Check, Igbo kwenu. Igbo kwenu. Igbo murono. Igbo sunono. Igbo mureno. Igbo kotano. Igbo kwezuno. I want to start this evening's discourse by greeting the Almighty God. I want to extend my greetings to the Supreme Igbo Council, every lady in South Africa by Sudeji. I want to thank our brother, my brother, from my part of the world, Dr. Ben Okoli. Asali Bono Maya Bogene, Asina Bono Maya Bogene, Ali Munye, I speak English, I speak Igbo, I speak French, I speak Zulu. So I want to also recognize our elder, Professor Wong Onada. I want to greet and recognize the Nigerian consulate represented as Shinishi Wansh. Explain to the ones who don't understand it. I want to recognize my elder brother, my teacher, an intellectual extraordinary, Professor Kenneth Ikechukwu. Professor Kenneth, as a matter of fact, is one of the 10 the best 10 researchers of earth, on God's earth, is an Igbo man and he's sitting here. Professor Kenneth Ikechukwu from Okigwe, is one of the 10 best researchers on God's earth as we sit here today. We can go for the Chief, to bet you justice in him. I'm going to I'm a typical boy who lives in Johannesburg. When they said Igirigi, when they said they're masculine, a lot of people thought a very big giant is going to come out. I was brought up in the village. Agram MTN Vodacom. I work in the MTN. I service through Vodacom. If you bring Celtel, I will also operate. What do I mean by this? I grew up in the streets of Johannesburg. I came from the village. I am viable in the corporate. I have led the corporate world. I have led the government, what do you call it? The proletariat, what do you call it? The bureaucracy. I'm a civil servant and I'm a businessman. I'm a typical Igbo boy. I was trained at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Before I went to Nsukka, I came from a village called Umudim Umaele Amazano. Umaele Amazano is in a place called Umaka Ancient City. onye na-amada onye ụmụaka, onye na-amada ebe ụmụaka ahụ gị gba na onye ụmụaka bedo obodo ọnwụ na-asị na. In present day in Jaba local government of Imo State, I went to state primary school Umaele, Amazano. I went to school for gifted children, St. Augustine's Grammar School for gifted children at Nkwere. I left as the best. I went straight to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I made distinction as a pharmacist. I left the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I worked at Federal Medical Center over. I left as the best graduating intern. I went to State Specialist Hospital in Ikere Ekiti. I left as one of the best in that hospital. I came to Johannesburg. When I arrived in Johannesburg, they told me there is no road for you. They told me to go back. There is no space for people like you. I saw a lot of tall buildings. I saw a lot of fine cars. I said, there's no way I can prepare and there will be nothing for me in this land. And I told the person, the day they will count the Igbo people that arrive Johannesburg and they count 10 persons and they don't count me. Oh, you know, ladies and gentlemen, let me seize this opportunity to address the Igbo people today. In delivering this lecture, my topic is the inter-ethnic relations in Nigeria, lessons from South Africa. The theme of today's discussion is the rise of ethnic nationalism in Nigeria, the security, economic, social, political, and cultural implications or ramifications for the Igbo people and their heritage. What are the implications of this thing to the Igbo people and their heritage? Let me start by telling you that Nigeria is our heritage. Our forebears fought very well to establish Nigeria. Our forebears fought very hard to gain Nigeria's independence. I am going to touch the real problem that the Igbo are facing when they say the Igbo problem in Nigeria. Right now, when they say inter-ethnic relationships, the inter-ethnic relationships in Nigeria are not going well currently. In fact, since I was born. Why do I say this? In my village, I was the first and best graduating primary school boy. I was the best graduating secondary school boy. I went to one of the best universities in Nigeria. I came out as a professional. Yet, at the back of my mind, I was very, very sure that I would not get a job. Befitting job. An equivalent job. And this is the problem of almost every average young Igbo person. While you are in school, you have not failed the exam before, but in your subconscious, you are very sure they won't give you the best job, even if you made the best results. True or false? I'm going to talk to that today. As I stand here before you today, I've served South Africa. I've used my youth to serve South Africa. I've introduced policies, I've educated their children, I've raised their institutions. Every day I weep. People think that I'm getting happy because I'm getting big posts. As a matter of fact, I started as a junior. I became the first black man on earth to be in charge of ICU in Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital when Chris Hani was still the biggest hospital in the whole world. By 2004, I was appointed the chief pharmacist of St. Joseph's Hospital and an executive member of the SQ of that hospital. By 2004, I used to sit with you in Campus Square. I remember you. Without the reggae. Ladies and gentlemen, as an Igbo boy, I became the head of the government medical warehouse. Not only that, when I went to school and did master's degrees, I got master's in business administration. This country appointed me as the procurement authority, the director of procurement in Gauteng Provincial Department of Health. I was working and developing policies and training their children and giving them. This country gave me the key to their life. They gave me the key to their medicines. When you hear that people got contract of 100 million, I gave it. Professor Wong, are you here, sir? When you hear that somebody got contract of 50 million, 100 million to supply medicine, I gave it for 7.5 years in this province. Yet I'm an Igbo boy. When I go to my home country, they don't regard me. They don't give me opportunity. No matter what I do, they think I'm substandard. That cannot suffice. It is antithetical. It is not going to work. I have accepted to deliver this lecture because I carry a burden of conscience. Every day of my life, as I step into all those big auditoriums, big laboratories, I weep inside me. How come my people cannot reap the type of benefit South Africans are reaping? I go into research, personal soul searching, reflections, day in, day out. I realized that the problem of our land is but one thing. It revolves around leadership. It revolves around leadership. It revolves around how our leaders manage the inter-ethnic relationships. Nigeria, in a mimicry of the United States of America, is a country of diverse cultures. As a matter of fact, the Europeans came to our place and called us tribes. In the recent, we were nations brought together. That we are nations. We have seen where nations make countries, and those countries become successful. And South Africa is a typical example. South Africa in recent times went through hardships, serious hardships that challenged human existence. But look at how they are able to manage it up to today, that their people begin and continue to benefit. It is not a rocket science. We can do it for our people, as the Igbo people. It is about leadership. But let us go home. Maga East or West, home is there. Yes. Today we are saying, let us go to the Igbo Heritage Lecture and speak about how does all these things that happen in Nigeria affect the Igbo man. And now, how do we look at South Africa and find how we manage our challenges in terms of inter-ethnic relationship in this era of ethnic nationalism that's increasing in Nigeria. Let me go down to the discussions. What happened in South Africa is almost like what happened in Nigeria. Luckily, Nigeria got independence before South Africa. When the British came, they used the instrument of divide and rule to be able to capture the people, to control them. When the British left, the question is, did Nigerians sit down to see how do they counteract the impact, the effect of centuries of British colonialism, to make sure that people become unified and look for their strengths and make sure they allow their best children to lead the rest of us. What South Africa did was that apartheid, even practically as a state policy, kept them aside. More profoundly, when you go to Soshanguve, when you look at the name Soshanguve, many people don't pay attention to know. It's Sutu, Shangaan, Ngunis, vendors, and so on and so forth. The apartheid government that came in 1948 made sure that they regiment and segregate people according to their ancestry, to make sure they plant divisions among these people, so that the people will be busy competing among themselves while they are busy consolidating hold on power. That's exactly what the British did in Nigeria. When the British amalgamated the South and the North, they never consulted our people. Some of the people are not given to them, just like what happened in apartheid here. During apartheid, the apartheid government made sure that the worst of the jobs, the cheap labors, were reserved for the black people, while professional positions are given to the whites. They planted division. When you're colored, they give you a better job. When you're Indian, they give you a better job. When you're a black man, they put you down. These people were busy fighting while the white man was digging in. Luckily for us, the white man left. But our leaders, who fought for independence, who had visions to lift our place, we are never allowed to administer our place. When the white man left, he left his bag. He came back and continued to do neo-colonialism. Right now, fate has brought us to South Africa. I don't want to go into the journeys of how we arrived here. Our people were forced to migrate. For instance, let me take liberty to say that the Igbo man is like this container. And I'm taking liberty to say to you today, because you are Igbos, this lecture is for you. And this container is being forced to go into this small cup, what is the natural thing that will happen? As you empty, what will happen? They will overflow and start doing what? Migrating. They start running away. They start running riot. Because naturally, this cup cannot contain the Igbo man. Nigeria is forcing the Igbo man to exist within a space that is less than their capacity. God designed Nigeria that the Nigerian people and West Africa, as a matter of fact, will benefit from the Igbo man. When they tell you about the strength of the Igbo man, some people say it as a bragging right. No. It's an ecosystem. It's a design of nature. That from these people, this area of black people must rise. What do? We have spoken English and grammar about it for many years since I was a boy. As a matter of fact, I'm a son of an Igbo man. My father, Livunus Ehirim, grew up in the village like me, went to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, studied history and archaeology, went to the University of Lagos, studied history and international relations and master's degree. He served in Nigerian customs for 33 years. He went to National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies, Kurunia Jos. He went to the 6 geopolitical zones. I listened to him all my life. I learned from him that Nigeria is not good. He served Nigeria, but he believes that one day Nigeria will be good. And with that belief, I now realize why God brought me to South Africa. I began to attend meetings with premiers, began to attend meetings with MECs, began to advise the executive council of a province in a foreign land. Whereas I cannot even have access to the office of the governor in Imo State. A street boy will stop me, tell me that he's a chief of staff. A non-entity will stop me, tell me he's the brother to the governor. A person who has nothing to contribute will tell me that he's the chief security officer. But I can access the president of South Africa. I can access the Gauteng premier. I can give him ideas, and the ideas will help his people. I introduced what is called down referral system in this country. We started it in Gauteng. It was my brainchild. Today, there are people who go near to their houses and receive medicines. When I go home and tell my mother that people who are 60 years above don't pay for medication, he said to me, you are lying. She will say to me, you are lying. I brought my mother here, went to Helen Joseph, and she was treated. When I was going, he asked me, Bobo, wala how? Now, the main reason for us to gather here is about not reeling out the problems and the challenges we face. It is, what are we going to do? As Igbo people who live in South Africa, what are we going to do? Now, the issue is, why did we gather here? Every day we come to Heritage Lecture. We take our brother's money, my brother, Dr. Obi, we eat it, we go. Nigerians in South Africa, you have come of age. When you started crying with your colleagues to form this Ohaneze, that to make sure you move our people. Okay, that's all. Right now, God has a plan to bring you here. He brought you here so that you come here and copy. And from what you copy, you go home and help our people. Ishop, you're working there. Ishop, you're working there. Ishop, you're working there. Or what do you become name? Ishop, you're working there. Ishop, you're working there. Ishop, you're working there.